Yeah, my life story is that when I think about why did I become a doctor, I think it goes back to my youth, where my sister died of an infection, and when I was 5 years old, as the oldest son in a family, and my mother said that the doctor made a mistake. So, yeah, I think that was, at that time, it was something like that shouldn't happen or something. And I've always been a doctor, but there's no doctor in the family, so I can't think of any other thing as me trying to heal the whole world as a boy of 5.
Right, like
So
a deep imprint in a sense,
Yeah.
from a young age.
Yeah, and it's beautiful. And so it started as the wounded healer.
Yes.
And I think that's when we are talking about integral and about doctors and about becoming a doctor, I think it's so important that you know your own story and to see where you're coming from, and to even give more credits to your story, to really deeply explore why you're a doctor.
And did you always know from that point that you were going to be a doctor, or was there then a point as a teenager when you were thinking about what you were going to study that it became a conscious choice?
I've always known I would be a doctor, and it became conscious during puberty or something. Then it became conscious, but I've never doubted it. There has never been. That's why I call it a calling. Something called me to become a doctor, and I think this event, what I just told you, was very important, because it had a lot of impact on me, my life, my family. It's dying of a person a child in a family drives parents out of each other. Although I had a great youth, they were not really connecting anymore. So the things like that have big influence on life. So. And I was raised Catholic, and I loved Jesus' story, but I didn't love the dogmatic religious things.
Right.
But I loved the story of someone who gave his life. So that's why I went to the church, but to be in silence. But I couldn't handle the dogmatic religious things they told me.
Yes, it's like, again, there was an appetite and a calling, wasn't perhaps quite met by the structures, but there was something inside that needed to kind of make contact in that
Right,
way.
right. That's what I know now, and I felt it but I couldn't name it when I was 15 or something. But you're so right.
Right, and so you went obviously to medical school, and at medical school, I think for a lot of people that go in with a passion to want to help, suddenly it can be quite an impact of just the amount of data and information. How was that process? Did you thrive on that? Was that kind of obstacle you had to deal with?
Yeah, it was kind of embarrassing to first start studying chemistry, biology, physiology, and I didn't see a patient before I was 4 or 5 years in the study, and I didn't learn about patients and spiritual things and nothing, only the material part, the scientific material part, and there was there I also lost it. I knew I wanted to be a doctor, but I had to do an awful lot of work to get through those difficult years.
Yeah, and I hear that from many doctors. It's like it's a shock almost, just the amount of consumption of statistics and numbers and data and information. And so you then became a doctor, and the interest in a kind of more integral approach, let's say, was that there at the start, or was that something that kind of was birthed over time?
Yeah, just one step back. I think we have to learn the scientific things. So we have to really, we're talking about stages of development later on.
Yeah.
We have to really embrace kind of that stage of scientific development. So, I think we can do it in better ways, but we have to go beyond that.
And I think that's one of the things that, is just as an aside, just as a kind of thought, that I think can be a limitation in a lot of alternative medicine, that people don't go through that rigorous training. They're often too quick to want to come to kind of intervention, that there's something about that depth of understanding that I think is just necessary.
Yeah, so true. And I think we'll get back to that, because it's such an important thing. When we are integral, we want to really connect with, doctors with alternative workers, and we have to find ways in that, and those are very important things.
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah.
What also struck me is that there was no real communication. It's kind of strange when I say that, but the way in which we communicated was to find as soon as possible the disease, and then start treating the disease. And I'm talking about 30 years ago. It's really changing.
Yes.
And then we start treating the disease. But there was nothing deeper than the disease. There was no deep causality. So I was amazed by the flatland, the flatland of communication. And during my study, becoming a GP, I first got in contact with NLP, with neuro-linguistic programming, and I read The Structure of Magic by John Grinder, and I first thought, this is communication. This can deepen my relationship to the client and also my relationship to what's going on. So that was just before I got my own practice, and I told myself I want to be an NLP practitioner, but first want to become a good doctor.